How's everybody doing today? So to help manifestation, you must cultivate your imagination. And you have to get into a creative mindset, basically, because you can't create the world around you in the way you want unless you're envisioning with like clear imagination. When you're a kid, your imagination runs wild and is very easy to do because you can make up like places that you want to be in. You can make up like you're a certain type of character, or you're playing cops and robbers, or you're pretending you're a ninja or stuff like that, or you're a princess if you're a girl, living in a castle, so on and so forth. That imagination is really strong when you're children. The problem is when you grow up, it fades away because you stop using it. You get serious in your everyday life, and you start doing your chores, your responsibility for your job, and your job generally doesn't require much imagination a lot of times. If it's just like an office job, typing in a database into a computer or something like that, you're not cultivating your imagination very much. Now, if you have a job where you're like a painter or an artist or musician of sorts, that is good because you're always using your imagination, and won't take much to create the manifestations that you want because you're in tune with that all the time. But if you're been out of tune, you have to like start using your imagination. And there's a lot of different tricks and things you can do to do this. If you start drawing is one. Listening to music, like inspirational music, that helps. And like imagine you playing the instruments or singing along with it. That cultivates imagination. Watching, if you're watching a movie, that doesn't really do it because you're separating yourself from the creation from the inner self. Now, if you're reading a book and you're imagining you're the character in the book while you're reading the book, that is more stronger imagination. But if you're watching a movie, the scene is already created, so it doesn't take much effort. You're like, oh, okay, I see where everything was going on, so I don't have to do anything. That's the problem with watching a movie as far as imagination is concerned. When you're being creative, you have to cultivate it from source, not for something that's like already been there and it's already created. Because you're missing the step of creation at that point. That you skip the step. But for you to manifest whatever it is you want, you need that creation step in your mind, in your heart, and your subconscious mind, telling your subconscious mind to create it. So you're the co-creator, you're the source of the creation. You just got to imagine it to come into fruition. Now, if you're having trouble doing this, like I said, some of the tips are like pretend you're like in a fantasy land or something, or something like Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. Put yourself as a character in a different world that's so far from our current reality that your imagination starts like activating. Because if it's really close to our reality, maybe it's not jump starting you the way you want. So like pretend you're like maybe in outer space or something, you're meeting aliens or whatever. Something that requires a tremendous amount of imagination that's far from what your everyday experience would be. And it could be anything. I'm just giving you examples of some extremes that would help jumpstart it, right? Maybe if you've never been on a cruise ship, you imagine yourself on the cruise ships, like sailing on the water, and you're overlooking the ocean while it's driving, and then you're going to like remote paradise islands and stuff like that. Imagine that in your head, without like looking it up online. Try to vision what you see in your head. Then if you want to like compare it later to the like an internet picture or something, that's completely fine. But you want to use your creative juices in order to activate it first, and then compare it later if you so choose to compare it. The more and more you do this, you won't have to compare it. You'll have the perfect vision in your head, and that'll help you manifest later on. If you need to write stories, like short stories, that can help create the imagination. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like, you don't even have to publish it. Just write a short story of something, you know, that you're making up, thinking that it could happen. You just keep it in a notebook or something like that. Or pretend like if you're making a video game, what would your video game be? If you're the producer of a video game and you're telling everybody how to make it, how would that video game look? Because you're creating the simulation, so you might as well create a simulation through your imagination. This is how you manifest. That's also with the, you know, the other tips that I told you with the law of assumption and pure belief and all that. But I'm just telling you in this video, like, how to kind of like create the imagination if you don't use it very much, if you're not a creative person, or maybe you've been out of a creative situation for a long time because of your work and you're raising your kids, or whatever the case may be. Try to get back into that a little bit by using it, coming up with stories, or reading books that are kind of like far-fetched from reality, and then imagine yourself in that world with the characters that you're reading in the book, and that can kind of like spark the ideas in your head. But that's all I wanted to talk about today, is imagination. And as always, I greatly appreciate you guys watching my videos, and have a nice day.